Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our webinar today. My name is Brian, and for those of you who don't know about us, we are a government-owned organization in Singapore that invests in and helps build deep tech startups, talent, and communities. At SGInnovate, our work involves connecting with the global deep tech ecosystem, working with entrepreneurial scientists to bring their innovative research from lab to market, as well as developing deep tech talent. Today's event, Vertical Farming, Investing in the Future of Food, is presented by SGInnovate and Invest in Denmark. Today, we have a panel of amazing experts who will be sharing their insights on market perspectives, up-and-coming innovations and projects in the agri-food tech space. I would also like to encourage our audience here today to share their thoughts on this topic and engage with our speakers by using the Q&A box below. And now, with no further ado, I'll now pass the time over to Jeppe, who is the Regional Director for Asia at Invest in Denmark. Jeppe, please.
Thanks. Your Excellencies and other guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jeppe Solmer, and I'm the Director of Invest in Denmark in Asia. I would like to sincerely welcome all of you to this webinar on vertical farming, invest in the future of food. But before we are moving into the program, I want to introduce Invest in Denmark. Invest in Denmark's aim is to promote Danish strongholds and attract foreign investment into Denmark. If foreign companies want to explore the investment opportunities in Denmark, we will assist you the whole way from Asia until you have done your investment in Denmark. Our services are for free. We have a great team in Asia and in Singapore, and also in Denmark, where we have good colleagues with sector-specific knowledge who will assist foreign companies to get in contact with relevant stakeholders and set up their business. I want to thank SGInnovate, who has been a great collaboration partner for us. The webinar today is one of the ways Invest in Denmark create awareness about Danish strongholds as a global role model for sustainable food production and innovation across the entire food value chain. Denmark is well known as a country that has an excellent implemented sustainable development goals concept in various industries. And as a country, Denmark has a long tradition focusing on food and health. Maybe most of you might not recognize that Denmark is named as an agriculture superpower. Denmark has the most innovative food sector in EU. Denmark has the world's highest organic share and making the Danish consumers the most pro-organic in the world. The Danish food production value chain starts from the farms and is driven by a strong mandate to produce food with minimal pollution, high resource efficiency, and small carbon footprint. Denmark has set the goal to have Danish food production completely climate neutral by 2050. To reach this goal, indoor vertical farming plays a very important role. Denmark has established a fully functioning ecosystem through private academic partnership and private partnership, and I hope you would have a chance to experience this ecosystem in the future. It is clear that Danish food competences and Singaporean visions harmonize very well together, and therefore we can create new business opportunities. Collaboration is essential, and events like this today make me proud to be working for Invest in Denmark. Every day we work hard to do our part in realizing the huge potential of continued collaboration between Singapore and Denmark. I'm quite sure with this strong panel of speakers today, you will soon see new collaboration between our two countries. And now I want to give over the word to the next speaker, Signe Vaerbak from Food and Biocluster. Signe, please.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I think I'll just start by sharing my screen. Now I hope it works. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Good. I will give here an overview of the trends on the vertical farming industry in Denmark. We have quite a small industry, but it is growing and it is really interesting. But maybe I should start by introducing myself. I'm Signe Vaerbak. I have a Master of Science in Horticulture, kind of way back, and a PhD in plant breeding. And I have for many years worked with product development, plant breeding, and consultancy in Danish as well as international companies, mainly in the horticulture industry. Today I am part of Food and Bio Cluster Denmark, which I will briefly introduce here. We are the Danish national cluster for food and bioresources, and we have actually quite a long history. We started back in 2001 in a different name and in a smaller setup. And our current form is established 2 years ago, and we are a non-profit organization with a mission to strengthen the knowledge-based innovation and knowledge collaboration across the entire value chain, nationally and internationally, and being also the one point of entry for companies and knowledge institutions within networking, innovation, business development, and funding, and everything within food and bioresource industries in a broad perspective. Yeah. We work for increased competitiveness through innovation and business development. We have 40 people. We have 40 sector experts with quite different backgrounds. We are located in 10 offices distributed around Denmark, and we have three incubator hubs in different parts of Denmark. So we host also startup companies. And we have in total a yearly project portfolio of about 150 million euros. We have more than 360 paying members from Denmark and outside, mainly from Denmark, but also from abroad. And you can say we have our members are, yeah, you can say from the biggest companies like Christian Hansen and Novozymes to the smallest startup companies. We have a lot of startup members, and also we have among our members all the universities all the relevant universities in Denmark, as well as other knowledge institutions. So a broad, yeah, very broad member collection, you can call them. We also host some member-only networks. So we have first of all, today, the vertical farming network, but we also have other networks around interesting developments within our industry. I have listed them there, so you can read them. Each year we arrange or co-arrange more than 150 events, and we have more than 3,500 dialogues with members and other players in the market. We have partners in 65 countries through Enterprise Europe Network. And our business model is membership fees and then project finance. And we also sell some consultancy services. So that's us. Now, sorry, it doesn't work for me here. Now, to our focus on vertical farming. We started a little more than 2 years ago with the focus on vertical farming, because we could see that it was an interesting industry developing. So we started out with having, together with Copenhagen University, a large international conference in November 2020, and we had 260 participants. And then we have had some discussions, and in the spring 2021 we started the Danish Vertical Farming Network, and we have until now had 5 events with that network. And then the last thing we have done is, again, together with Copenhagen University, to do a national conference in March 2022 with 120 participants, ranging, you can say, from vertical farming to the more traditional greenhouse industry in Denmark. Very nice conference. We are a member of the Association for Vertical Farming, and we have partnered up with Copenhagen University on mapping challenges and discussions with authorities within the vertical farming. I will come back to this mapping shortly. Yeah, the mapping we have done, I will show you on the next slide. And we have done promotion of vertical farming internationally through Invest in Denmark, like we do now, and Plant Interfere Cluster and other things. Then we have funded or participated in funding of innovation projects within vertical farming, and we have done several introductions and sparring to startups and matchmaking between companies as well. That's a lot what we do also. On the mapping of the vertical farming industry, we have done that again together with Copenhagen University. And as you can see, yeah, here we have an impression of the companies. There's, first of all, if we start from the right side on the producers, there are, first of all, a number of producers with different sizes and also different approach. And Alex from Microgreen is representing this group within a few minutes. And then we have several, upper left, you can see several solutions or companies offering technical solutions to the industry. That is light solution, benches, watering systems, fertilizers, all those kind of things. And Steen will go more into this, and a lot of the players on these solutions are also active in the more traditional greenhouse industry, which is quite strong in Denmark. So then bottom right, we have advisors, which are also very much shared between the vertical farming industry and the traditional greenhouse industry. We have R&D and authorities, a couple of our universities, especially Copenhagen University, but also Aarhus University is very active within the vertical farming research. And yeah, you can say in general, very active in futures horticultural industry, future horticultural systems. And then we have a couple of communities where food and bio cluster is one of them. So that is the map, the landscape of the vertical farming industry in Denmark, you can say. In Denmark, vertical farming is positioned well with some of our large retailers. I must say, mainly in the big cities. I've not seen it where I live, which is out in the countryside, but for sure in Copenhagen and our other bigger cities, we have this vertical farms store systems represented, and some of the vertical farms are more focused on the food service and have different systems, slightly different systems. But here you can get also an impression of their, what they do. So they are focused on restaurants, especially. So, and bringing really fresh food to the restaurants. If I should list the opportunities I see for vertical farming in Denmark, as Jeppe mentioned, Denmark is very well known for our efficient agriculture, our food safety, and our high food quality. Agri-food R&D are we doing very, very actively, and also we are more or less, or in our own opinion at least, we are world famous for our gastronomy. So strong position in many ways to support this vertical farming. For many years and increasing, we have a huge national focus on sustainability, innovation and export within the agri-food sector. And especially I would emphasize that sustainability is very, very much in focus from our government side. Then, as I have briefly introduced, we have this small but technically very advanced horticultural sector and also a strong R&D, and it fits very well with the vertical farming, you can say. And then a more general thing, great food with great taste is always welcome, especially in the high-end food service sector. And this technology or this industry potential can grow salads, herbs, and exotic plant products that are very nice for eating, but also have potential for production of medicine and food ingredients. Also in Denmark, we have this very strong food ingredient industry, as you might know. So in my eyes, Denmark has really the potential to become a leading country within vertical farming. And we also see significant interest from investors' side, from business angels, but also from larger venture capitals. And finally, we are open for investments in Denmark. So thank you from me, and over to Steen.
Right. Thank you very much, Signe, and thank you very much all participants in this seminar for the opportunity to introduce you to Viemose DGS in Denmark. I know it's good afternoon in Singapore. In Denmark it's good morning, but other than that, there are very many points of cooperation already existing between our countries, and we'd like to support and strengthen that. A brief introduction. Well, I'll share my screen and let's go from there. Just a quick question. Do you see the presentation? You do. Brilliant. Thank you very much. My name is Steen Beyer. I am the export manager for Viemose DGS, located in Denmark. We are a private company that specializes in manufacturing cultivation systems for indoor farming, for protected cropping. We were established as greenhouse builders in 1947 and have a long track record and a lot of knowledge about indoor farming. And in the mid-90s, we were part of a group that invented what is nowadays known as the moving gutter system. And our cultivation systems base largely on the moving gutter system phenomenon. And I'll go into that a little bit more later. But indoor cultivation systems is what we do and what we live for. We do not build greenhouses anymore. Our products that aim to turn theory into practice sell worldwide. We are worldwide exporters. This year alone, we built in Japan, in Australia, in Canada, and of course in Scandinavia. And have partners that are associated with Singapore, so we can have a direct representation there. What we do is basically build moving gutter systems, which is this phenomenon where you have plants sitting in gutters. Irrigation happens inside the gutters, and these gutters move from one end of a growing line at planting to the harvesting end at the other end of the planting line in about 20 days, 22 days. And in doing so, the spacing between the gutters increases automatically so that you always have the maximum number of plants per square meter, or the optimal number of plants at all possible in a greenhouse. And such lines can be built in layers and form vertical farms. we have as a reference, since a lot of the farms we build are still considered innovative, we are often met with NDAs and not allowed to discuss them. So we built a farm in Copenhagen and cooperate with a company called Refarm, also mentioned by Signe, that produces leafy greens for a restaurant. They are located in the basement, and the restaurant is one floor up. So it's literally harvesting leafy greens and putting them in an elevator and carrying them up to the place of cooking and using. We also do old-fashioned bench systems, traditional bench systems, either fully automated or partially manual. But all in all, cultivation systems is our DNA. Now, if you look at the background for the vertical farming, we talked about sustainability already a little bit, and the big advantage of using a moving gutter system in such a manner is that you have up to about 95% saving of water versus growing in open fields. And that, of course, also means about 95% saving of fertilizer. It's fully automated systems that require only one operator, which is hugely a cost reduction on labor, but also contamination and food safety issue, where you can actually produce free of human intervention. Such systems are CO2 negative. They consume much more CO2 than the machinery puts out. And at the end of the day, it enables us to produce close to the end users, having the, as I mentioned, the optimal use of growing space and the highest possible yield per square meter. Such systems support organic and sustainable farming, and we'll come back to that in a moment also. The big advantage of vertical farming as such, indoor farming, of course, is that you have protected environment and you have a reliable all-year production. And in this, in these times of climate change, that is a huge factor. And finally, of course, with the proximity, the closeness to the end user in such a system, you reduce the handling of produce, and thus you also reduce food waste. It's been hypothesized and to some degree proven that about 40% of freely grown vegetables are lost in either transportation due to rough handling, due to temperature, wrong temperature inputs. In such systems as the one you see in the picture, the vertical farm, less than 1% of the grown produce is actually lost. If we look at the concept of vertical farming and the methods of growing, there are, in our view and our experience so far, two main types. Of course, there are other categories, but we have what you often see as large centralized vertical farms, which are located in suburbs or just outside, say, city centers or some distance away from the end user, but still closer than agricultural production. And one example of this is, many of you may have heard of the Nordic Harvest farm in Copenhagen, which sits just outside Copenhagen and caters for a lot of the supermarkets. And then there are the smaller, decentralized, close to the end user vertical farms, as the one you see in the picture, Refarm, that is in the basement just beneath the restaurant, or could be on a rooftop, could be in a container outside a supermarket, or anywhere suitable for growing, but at the immediate proximity of the end user. The setup of our system is rather straightforward. You see the moving gutter system, you see the plants growing in gutters, and we have, of course, facilities for seeding, for germination, and for propagation. But this means that young plants now placed in gutters are inserted into an elevator that automatically takes them up to any given growing level, automatically pushed in. They grow for a number of days, and they are harvested, automatically pushed out onto the elevator and taken out to harvest at the other end. This is the optimal use of space. It requires, of course, LED lights, grow lights, at least in the lower layers. But it gives you a very, very high yield on a very small surface. It's, in our system, very, very flexible. You can have one layer as one growing line, or you can combine more layers as one growing line, depending fully on the type of produce you want to grow. When I say leafy greens, what we frequently see are herbs and kales and lettuces in such systems. We also, being manufacturers, all of this is manufactured and produced in Denmark and undergo strictly quality control. We also extrude and manufacture the gutters, giving you even more flexibility to grow in such systems. We have gutters with holes in them for smaller and larger plants. We have for baby leaf, for people who prefer that, open gutters either for peat or for hemp mats, whichever to the preference, so we can make and build a system that is exactly tailored to the customers or growers, end users' preferences. We talked about the centralized vertical farm, and the pictures you've seen, the red pictures you've seen in the presentation so far are, of course, of this very close to end user decentralized farm. But here's another example of what you can do with vertical farming in a more centralized growing facility. This is out of Finland. Finland has the phenomenon that's known from many countries, that they have a lot of space, but people tend to move towards the bigger cities to work, creating, of course, new suburbs, new residential areas, and thus the need for new freeways or highways going into the cities. And when you build those, there is a requirement for noise control, for noise walls along those freeways. And in this, our Finnish partner has seen the light and said, why don't we build a greenhouse along the motorway or freeway as a noise wall? And this is currently in production. It's being built outside Helsinki. This is a 200-meter long building. Inside, we have 4 lines of vertical farming, because these people that move into the residential areas, into the larger cities, of course, need to eat. So in such a building, we have 200 meters of vertical farming system of multi-level. This is a hybrid solution where you have sunlight from above and from one side, so there's only a requirement for LED lights in some of the lower layers. And it goes to show that from a business aspect, we are looking at a return on investment in 4 years. And we are looking at a lifetime, a longevity on this system for about 25 years. We know this because the first systems we put up in Sweden now 25 years ago are still fully operative and work flawlessly. So systems like that, as a very simple business case, have 20 plus years of profitable growing. Another mission of our production is to integrate our cultivation systems with other systems. And we're going to talk a little bit, I know, later on what is actually sustainable growing. And sustainability, of course, again, in our corner of the world has 2 major meanings. One is, of course, financial sustainability. We need to build systems that can support themselves after a reasonable amount of time. The refarmed system has a return on investment of about 3 years. The large-scale farm on about 4.5 years. But this is with very high cost of electricity and water that we have in Scandinavia. Other countries, other situation might be different. But looking at more sort of environmental sustainability, of course, we want to grow, we want to meet the food requirements of the world, but we want to do so without negative impact in the world we live in. So we want to grow organically. We don't want to have fertilizers or anything else seeping into the underground. we want to be CO2 negative, etc., etc. But there's more to it than that. There's also seeing sustainability as circular growing, or as a circular phenomenon where you integrate the different aspects. We have here a small scale model which integrates our farm system with fish and using the fish manure to fertilize our plants, meaning simply aquaponics, but also integrated with a biogas solution that can generate heat and relieve us of waste, and also support the growing of black soldier flies, which you will see being used for currently mostly for animal food, but in a not too distant future also for human food. So we strongly support integrating our cultivation system with other systems. Thus, at the end of the day, we are a business, but we strive to support the sustainable development goals and leave this world a better place than we received it. I'm sure you're aware of this, but this should bring to mind I think most participants in this seminar has a concept or an idea in mind, and I would strongly urge you to feel free. Please contact us if you have any ideas, any thoughts, anything you would like to share with us. This is our contact info, and we are very open to discuss any opportunities, any possibilities you might consider. This is a brief introduction to, well, as I said, turning theory into practice, into practically growing in a financially and environmentally sustainable way. So thank you very much for your attention. And I'll pass the torch on to Luke. Luke, if you are ready, I'll stop sharing here.
Yes, well, thank you, Steen. And hello, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning to our friends in Denmark. Thanks for taking the time. I was told it's actually a public holiday in Denmark today. And when I asked what is it, it's the Feast of the Ascension. And not being too corny, but I think vertical farming also involves ascension. And I think we've all gotten a good background already on, the journey to date, the focus on sustainability, on both on the financial side and the technological side, the role of the state and so on. So I think let's really jump right in. By way of quick introduction, I'm a foresight and strategy consultant with a focus on food, energy, water, and sustainability systems. Now over to the content today. So certainly I'm learning a lot here, and I'm sure we will as well. I think we're talking about a few themes that come up. And I think one of those, maybe just building on what Steen just mentioned, can I hear thoughts from other panelists also on what does sustainable agriculture mean to you, including what you do in your organization to foster it?
Yes, should I start?
Well, Signe, yeah, maybe you first, and then Alex, and Alex, please introduce yourself also later. Thank you.
Yeah, but it's I would say a lot of the things as Steen was mentioning. For me, sustainability is of course about our environment, but it's also, you can say, social responsibility and absolutely also economics. And of course, we have to take care of our planet by minimizing our emissions of greenhouse gases, as well as the leak of pesticides and nutrients to the aquatic environment. And the dilemma is, at the same time we have to increase the food production in order to feed the growing world population. And then we have to do both in a way that where the economy is also healthy. And I see vertical farming as not a standalone solution, but one contribution to sustainable food production. And as Steen mentioned, it is especially interesting where farmland is limited, or where the farmland is located far away from the consumers, because it's an efficient system which allows, you can say, local production in very limited space, and then short transportation distances, which further contributes also to sustainability.
Great. Alex?
Well, hello, my name is Alex Picard. I come from the company that's called Microgreens Denmark. Just a short introduction. I run and operate and own 3 vertical farms in Denmark, just about 4,000 square meters in total. We do microgreens, herbs, and salads, and then we do a lot of consultancy as well on the side in terms of how people set up tech solutions for vertical farms and how the growing process itself as head growers. In terms of sustainability, I have to both give Signe and Steen correct. It has to be, in my perspective, it's about having a sustainable business model in total. You have to be sustainable in terms of the climate, in terms of your economy, in terms of your staff. You have to be sustainable in so many other ways than just pesticides and money, that it makes sense on a total plane. I don't think vertical farming is the solution itself. You need arable land, you need growing square meters outside of vertical farming. Vertical farming is, again, it's a great way to get fresh produce in a fast manner, in a local manner. So it's a very different setup than what is generally and normally accepted.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Alex, for that. And I think that it's a very interesting point of comparison for you folks to do this panel, because, of course, vertical farming has also, taken off in a big way in Singapore, and, variegated into different types, including, aquaponics and, both indoor and greenhouse and so on. So I think there's a lot to compare on. So that said, it's quite interesting again, and I take your point that it's a matter of maybe a bit of a niche solution, but within a wider ecosystem, and Denmark has this long heritage of being agriculture powerhouse, I think way beyond its size, at least in population, So comes to the next question, really. Why would you say, beyond what you've shared already, why do you think Denmark is an inspiring place to develop vertical farming? How does it fit into the space? Signe?
Yeah, should I start again? Yeah, as you just mentioned, and as I also mentioned in my presentation, Denmark is very well known for efficient agriculture and food quality and food safety, and we have this very skilled horticultural industry. And also in Denmark, we have this strong, you can say it's triple helix approach, where the universities, the industries, and the government interact to create the new innovations. Actually, we are very good at cooperation, cooperating between the different sectors. And the Danish government has a special focus on the development of sustainable solutions, and the ambition is also very much to develop solutions with a potential for export. And a vertical farming is one sustainable solution, as we have mentioned a lot of times, and especially when we in future get access to green electricity from wind and sun. So maybe right now we have a different situation with the situation in Ukraine, but and the energy prices going up. But for sure, this will also result in more investments in green energy. So it will help also vertical farming.
Indeed. Well, thanks, Signe. And I guess you mentioned the big mammoth situation in the room, and perhaps and also the other one being the energy take of vertical farming. I think as the panelists share their perspectives, I see some questions coming in already. So encourage more questions in the Q&A box, and I think panelists can also gaze a bit there. And I think we are a bit ahead of time, so we have a bit more time to deal with questions from the audience and make this more interactive. Alex, over to you. Your thoughts?
Yes, perfect. My thoughts on why Denmark is good is mostly primarily because of the farmers. We are in a farming country from standard, so we have lots of farmers out there that already knows how to make the best for the seeds. We have lots of growing potential in terms of the plants itself. Lots of innovation happens all around the world, both Berlin and Germany and Holland. But where it lacks is the, in my opinion, is the professionality from the head growers themselves, from the people who has their hands in the dirt. to have a proper functioning vertical farm, you need to have a great output. You need to be able to produce plants well and efficiently. And often that requires well-trained farmhands. And in that sense, we just have a great knowledge base in Denmark that provides, and with the, as Signe mentioned itself, as the cost of the production itself in Denmark is quite low. It's a great place to innovate the systems itself and how to advance it from a certain point. So definitely.
Yes, and I think you know, that's a good point to bring up, because in the end, of course, unless it's done on a leisure or hobbyist basis, it's a business, you know. You know, and so I think that comes to the thought of you know, so how do you speed up the innovation and, you know, quickly roll out the profitability, the financial sustainability? You know, what I think Signe, you talked about the triple helix and so on, you know.
Yeah.
So when the rubber hits the road, you know, how does Team Denmark get together and help, you know, enterprises really deliver and succeed?
Yeah, but you can say first of all, in Denmark we have very good system actually for financial support to collaborations between academia and industry for research and development, and we have a lot in all different areas. We have a lot of collaboration projects, and very often we actually involve a supporting, you can say, a supporting partner in these projects. Food and biocluster could be an example, but there are several more, to take care of the, you can say, the boring paperwork, the project management and the project finance and these things, which gives energy and energy to the other partners, so they can focus on innovation. And that way of constructing projects, in my opinion, it increases the rate of success in the innovation work. So, and then also, sorry, come.
Oh no, go on, please.
No, and then also we have we strongly encourage entrepreneurship, you can say, in Denmark. So we have a very efficient system for helping researchers and especially students on universities and other institutions. If they come up with an idea, then there's a strong system for helping them. And around, I think most or all of our universities, we have these incubators where business startups can have an office and have access to free or cheap advisors in business development, how to commercialize, how to patent, and also a legal advice. So
it's I guess it's quite a layered approach. Then it's, you know, building interest, sensing the need, interventions of the right type at the right stage. And I like what you shared earlier about how, in fact, this is really part of even your national branding and your overall eco thrust. How about you, Steen? What's your thought on this?
Sorry,
in terms of
say again.
Okay. What's your thought on, you know, this the special secret sauce for Denmark in enabling innovation?
I'm having a little bit of technical issue here. I understand the question. Let me just see if I can switch.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I can only second what Signe and Alex already said. We have a very, very strong traditional background for protected cropping, for indoor growing. And this is based on partly trial and error and partly scientific research in Denmark. And if you add to this the entrepreneurship of the Danish mentality that we've always been sub-suppliers to almost all major industries in the world, we simply have the mentality and the toolbox to do so.
Great. Well, thanks for that. You know, and I think that we've been really covering this topic from quite a few angles. I think really just to spy on you guys and really pick the topic off the top of your head, you know, what do you think, you know, looking at in your country, but I guess also EU, and even, you know, what you see around the whole global space, what do you think are the most interesting trends in vertical farming that you see, you know, happening this year? I mean, of course, one thing is that some contexts like global stressors, like the one that you mentioned, may be one of the things that puts more weightage on a certain type of innovation, on a certain type of competitive advantage. But what else do you see out there? For instance, one thing I wonder about, Steen, your topic about centralized
Yes.
suburban versus decentralized urban. Is this something that you could imagine, like a middle-class family in the suburb, in the city, buying something that looks like a fridge and doing vertical farming?
Yes, I think it's a very, very good point, Luke, and you are addressing the right or having the right approach to this, because I think the biggest advantage and hope for future for vertical farming is the fact that it is so flexible. We can build from anywhere from very small scale to very large scale. To you saw the noise wall along the motorway, as well as you saw the vertical farm in the basement. Any available space, big or small, can be utilized for vertical farming, and that flexibility opens up many, many doors for the future.
Alex, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I think the most interesting trends, there's a big project coming on in Germany that's going to be a seed-based vertical farm that's going to try and produce for seeds for other vertical farms. I think that's going to be very exciting to see, but I also think it's in my own opinion, I think it's wrong. I think it's a hugely innovative process and a hugely innovative project, but I think the interesting part is going to be the more and more farmers idea about growing seeds that's more and more applicable for vertical farming systems. The current seeds that are for vertical farming system, if you talk to seed handlers all over the world, it's more about the greenhouses and the one-layer systems and maybe the NGS systems. But the vertical farming setups, the indoor climate, the environment, the end piece for consumers in terms of short days and stuff, it's not really investigated that much so far, and I think there's going to be more and more focus on it this year and the couple of years to come as we see more and more projects happening.
Yes, well, I think thanks for that, Alex. And in fact, maybe let me ask a stupid question before we go into, all the intelligent questions from the audience. I hope you've taken a look. So one of the things that some people say is, hey, why are we just, looking at microgreens and so on? Is this technology amenable to growing, pulses, even starches, staples in the future? I don't know what's behind that thinking. I suppose the answer is theoretically yes, but does it make business sense or ecological sense?
At the current market and the current presence in the technology, it doesn't. Theoretically, it makes sense. If you look at how we, for example, produce tomatoes, if you want to extend it to that point, tomatoes in Denmark in greenhouses are already grown in this upward sense. So in some traditional handlings of foods and processes, we already do vertical farming. We've been doing vertical farming for so many years. Whether or not it makes sense yet to grow carrots and layers is different questions. In Holland, there's a project that grows in Danish. It's called julesalat. It's an NDV salad, indoor, and it's a pretty easy crop to grow indoor because it requires a stable environment, but it actually just requires darkness all through its life to get this white bittery taste. So I think what is needed to say at the current moment is, how is the market price or how is the food security for that produce in this country? In Denmark, it could be baby leaf salads, for example. How are we secure in the production and in the facilitation of those products from other countries to Denmark? Because in Denmark, it's a big wheat company, not wheat. And it's very much focused on oils and all these things we can do, but the baby leaf salads and all these other stuff we get from out of the country. And how do we make more and more focus on bringing those pieces to Denmark and making it more food secure, food stable, so when we have a storm or we have high winds or lots of rain, it doesn't destroy those crops thousands of kilometers away, and we then can't get it and lose a hole in the Danish market. It's more, I think you have to look at the country or the area's ecosystem and what the consumer is prone to eat and prone to be near, and then say, okay, how does this make sense in terms of import export? Looking at, for example, Greenland, just got back from a project up there. The salads and herbs is a very, very low quality also in just the greenhouses they have, because it's not a good system that they are currently expanding on. But doing it in either containers or doing it in big cargo spaces or similar ideas is a much better investment for them. Also because then they can get year-round produce.
Yes.
When the last ferry comes up in October, they don't get fresh produce again until March. So it's more what makes sense for this place and this area in terms of what you can grow. But in theory and in reality, you can grow pretty much anything. It's just about whether or not it makes economical sense.
Yeah, so interesting. You mentioned Greenland. So I guess it's similar latitudes. So on the one hand, it's a geography. It's also the market. And meanwhile, outside of your controlled environment, there's climate change. I hear wine is being cultivated, vines are being grown, even in the Nordic countries. So it's a very interesting and febrile space. I think we have about 5 more minutes or so. And looking at the questions, I think I'm going to come to Signe after this. But there are 2 questions that came up a bit earlier on for Steen. To recap, for a small country like Singapore, we built up, how tall can a vertical farm grow? And then secondly, from another questioner, you mentioned that OPEX is cheaper than for a greenhouse. Given the current high price of energy, very topical, can you elaborate more on that? And also, I think talking about LED light, the lighting issue. Steen?
That is correct. Let's start with the practical. On building vertical farms upwards is virtually unlimited in that these farms are built on a steel superstructure, and that can be built up to, well, the ceiling. So that is part of the flexibility of such a system, that you can build the width and the length and the height to fit the available space. Now on the OPEX question. On the OPEX question is, I'm not sure this is understood correctly from my side, because I would say that what we see in vertical farms is, of course, the need for LED lighting for additional electrical usage. So if you build in a completely isolated indoor environment, you can control, say, all outside inputs, such as sunshine, such as heat, such as cold. But you need to maintain a steady temperature. And in the farms we built so far, there's been no requirement for heating. There's been some requirement for cooling, and that, of course, has a cost, but not by far compared to what the cost is of cooling a glass greenhouse, where you have the sunlight shining on the glass and being of course a major factor. So there is an issue in this, that you see the energy cost, the energy prices rising at the moment rapidly, and that is to some degree offset by the increasing cost of food, of produce, so that kind of balances and evens out. But at the end of the day, this comes down to an individual consideration from location to location, from greenhouse to greenhouse, or vertical farm to vertical farm. And Alex also hinted on that. We need to look at location and setup to determine what is actually the most advantageous.
Yes, I think Alex, you have a quick additional response on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm also what Steen says. What we primarily do in terms of consulting on technical parts is the LEDs itself. So depending on your culture and what you want to work with, you can have LEDs that can be air cooled or water cooled. We help design some, but it's all about then how you, as Steen said itself, you don't have to heat up vertical farms 99% of the time. You have to cool it down, and how you do it most advantageous for your wallet. Sometimes the LEDs itself can help in that sense, so you can use the heat in other senses. So there's many tricky things that you can't do on a broad basis. You have to do it on an individual from setup to setup, because as Steen also said, if it's 20 meters high, or it's 25, or it's 4, everything is different, and everything is different calculation. So you can't go out on a basis and say this one model fits everything.
Yes. And while you're there was one question about the growing mushrooms. Have you guys explored that in your stack solutions, Steen, as well?
Yes, we have, and it's very interesting. Depending a little bit of the growing media, what we find is that the compressed peat pots used in some vertical farms are excellent growing media after being discarded and shredded for growing mushrooms, and the excess heat from the LEDs is excellent for growing mushrooms, but the CO2 from growing mushrooms is excellent for the vertical farm. So there is a nice circular thinking in this.
Yes, and I mean, like, I guess as it gets more modular, as the model gets more complex, more moving parts, but I suppose you can move closer to that optimum.
Yes.
That again depends on each setup, each context. I think in the interest of time, we are moving towards the closing. I wanted just to invite each of you to share parting thoughts on any advice for companies that are looking towards Denmark, and any other final pearls of wisdom. But maybe let me direct the question to Signe as well for that first, and also together with the question posed to her about taking care of the planet and increasing food production. I think beyond just talking about vertical farming, what's the policy thinking on how to address food security?
So sorry, could you please repeat? I didn't understand the question.
Yeah, the exact question was, you mentioned how taking care of the planet is important while increasing food production.
Yeah.
Do you think that how do you think we should better distribute food around the world besides just increasing production?
Yeah, I absolutely agree that we should work on be better at sharing the food across the world. I don't have a solution on how we can do it, but for sure we have also to keep productivity in the countries where we have a high productivity. And you can say also that in Denmark we have plenty of farmland, and we produce, I don't know, 3 times more food than we can eat ourselves. But also here I think we have to keep our productivity, but we have also to free some land, because our biodiversity is under strong pressure. And for sure, vertical farming is not the solution to all questions, but it's just a small contribution to free some farmland, so we can get our bees back for pollination. So it's also for further productivity, you can say, in other crops.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Steen.
Yes,
Steen, and then Alex, any final parting thoughts?
I can only second what Signe said. I completely agree on all of this, and we need to add to this the food security issue. And we've seen the world changing so rapidly in the last couple of years that it's almost hard to keep up. But with the COVID situation, we saw many lockdowns, and we saw the difficulty of for one, producing food, but also moving it around between production place and end users. And now we see another issue with the new geopolitical situation, that farmland in the Ukraine is lost. And I think what we can do with vertical farming is to enhance food security by bringing the place of production so much closer to the end user that we at least offset a lot of these issues.
Thanks. Alex, you have the last word.
Thank you. I agree with both Signe and Steen in terms of what's been said here today. The thing for people to think about when investing in vertical farming is to have the right consultants on the job. If there are many hobby setups, there are many amateur setups, there's many different setups. There is a very, very few professional setups that actually work and generate profits. We see many projects that start up and fail due to incompetence is the wrong word, but a lack of knowledge. It's about finding people who can not do all of it. You need to find someone who's a great consultant on one part and another part and the third part and the fourth part. And you need to find the synergies between those so you can work towards the future of food. It's all about the knowledge and the knowledge sharing and the knowledge base. And lots of people say they have it, but my biggest advice would be find someone who's proven it, find someone who works with it and does it on a daily basis and has not necessarily 20 years of university college degrees, but maybe 4 or 5, and then 15 years working on granddad's farm or in vertical farms.
Yes. So, well, thank you again, Alex, Signe, and Steen. I certainly agree we need to find the right consultants, but you've been very insightful, and I regret there were many questions yet unanswered, but I guess that's for another dialogue. It leaves me to thank everyone, including Jeppe, who addressed us earlier, and to bring us back into SGInnovate Brian's good hands. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very
Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
Bye-bye.
Oh, hold on. I'll just do a quick closing statement. Yeah, thank you to all our speakers today for the insightful and knowledgeable discussion, and the presentations as well. I think I can speak on SGInnovate's behalf to say that it was a pleasure to have a group of experts like yourselves here today, sharing your insights on such an important topic. Special thanks to the team at Invest in Denmark as well. Jeppe, Sean, and Nadia for your help with putting this event together. Unfortunately, as Luke said, we weren't able to cover all your questions due to time constraints, but I very much like to thank all our audience members here today for engaging with us and sending in your questions. For our audience today, do also take note that we'll be sending out a post-event email with all the important information you may need, including a recording for this webinar, so do keep an eye out for that. And with that, we've come to the end of our webinar today. Thank you all for spending your Thursday afternoon with us. And on behalf of SGInnovate, I would like to wish you all a great week ahead, and we look forward to seeing you again at our next event. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.